On behalf of the Tools for Life Learning Center at Loudoun Habitat for Humanity, I would like to welcome you to our virtual workshop today on budgeting for the new year. All right, and then joining with us today, well, actually, let's go back and talk about our goals first, and then I'll introduce our guest speaker to us. So the goals for today's session, we're going to talk about learning how to develop your budget, some of those tips that you can incorporate to cut your expenses and save money. And then we're going to talk about how we can make those spending habits sustainable for the future. All right, so joining us today as our guest presenter is Mike Pontikis. He works at Sandy Spring Bank as the Assistant Vice President for Treasury Management. But here at Habitat, we know Mike is one of our board members and also one of our guest speakers, as you can kind of see in this picture here, who helps speak at our classes for our new homeowners. So the families that are partnering with us to purchase our houses. Mike comes in and helps with them budgeting and other things like that. So Mike, we're grateful to have you here with us today and now joining us for a Tools for Life Learning Center workshop and speaking to a broader community. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, Mike, I'm going to pass it off to you. And here is your first slide on developing a budget.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Again, my name is Mike Pontikis. I work with Sandy Spring Bank. I do, sort of like Amanda said, I do a lot of these classes for future homeowners as well as other members of the community. I love reaching out and talking to everybody. So sort of the goal, what I wanted to do today is talk a little bit to everybody about developing a budget, how to sort of develop your budget, start new habits. A lot of people sort of use the first of the year as a way to make any adjustments, get things in shape and all. When you hear the words developing a budget, a lot of people think, oh no, that's, you know, a lot of work, or it's sort of a big deal, but really all a budget is a plan, you know, and it's a living plan. It can change, it can adjust, things like that as you go. So what we're going to do is kind of take it from a high level, break things down, pretty simple, you know, and just to kind of give you just an overview of, you know, of what to look for and things like that. So, as you can see on the screen here, so basically what you want to do in order to start making a budget is develop, developing a budget. Take all the income that you have coming into your family, whether it's, you know, through work, other income, SSI or SSA, child support, things like that. Kind of, that's the starting point. That's the money that comes into the household. And then you want to subtract all of your expenses. You know, there's different types of expenses like fixed expenses, which is rent, utilities, car payments, you know, those kind of things. Some variable expenses, which are, you know, expenses that could change a little bit monthly. You know, food, entertainment, eating out, gas, you know, those kind of things. And basically you take all the income, subtract all your expenses, and that's what you're left with. If that's a positive number, great. You know, you're on track. You know, and able to, you know, start saving that extra money and things like that. If it's a negative number, then you're probably spending a little bit more than you're making. And that's what we can look at, you know, ways to cut back and save yourself a little bit of money to push that number up a little bit back in the positive. Next slide. Amanda, you have the next slide. Thank you. All right. Sorry. So what we have here on the screen, sort of a budget tracking tool. We use a very simple template from this, but one of the things I always encourage people to do and that I talk to is keep a very, very, very detailed track for 30 days to start. Every single penny that comes into your household and every single penny that leaves your household. You know, if you have kids and they ask for $5 because they want to, you know, buy a toy at the mall or something like that. I don't know if you could buy a toy for $5 anymore, but write that down. Any cash, things like that that you do, write that down. Keep track of absolutely everything that comes in and out, and that'll give you the most accurate picture. There's always different. I think if you look in the chat, there's a link to this template that you can use. And then there's different tools and stuff like that. Truebill is one of them, Mint Budget, NerdWallet, just some examples. A lot of people who, with bank accounts and online banking, you keep track of things there, particularly if you're not somebody who uses cash too often, like myself. I almost never have cash on me. But once you start listing all the expenses, then it will give you a little bit of an idea of what areas you can maybe help stretch dollars a little bit more, and what areas, that maybe you're spending a little bit too much money on and things like that. All right, next slide. You go to the next slide, please. Thank you. All right. Some of the tips for saving and cutting expenses: separate your wants from needs. There's wants and needs often overlap, and there's a lot of gray area between that. We all need clothes, but we want designer clothes and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but sometimes limiting those a little bit, can help. And also, when clothes can carry over from year to year. I know a lot of people like to go out, beginning of years and things like that, and buy all new wardrobes and those kind of things. Coffee, a lot of people think, oh, I need coffee first thing in the morning. Well, maybe you don't need a $4 or $5 coffee store, coffee chain coffee, and you can kind of make something at home, to help save money. Paying yourself first. I think that this is something that people often don't do, and I think it's really important. What that basically means is put money into savings first. Don't wait till the end of the month, see what's left over, and transfer whatever's left over into savings accounts. If you start the month with money in your savings account, it may create a slight deficit, and it'll help you adjust to that. So that way, whether it's $50 into your savings account at the beginning of the month or something like that, then that's $50 less that you can then go out throughout the rest of the month and spend. Paying down your debts. A lot of times, when I ask people, what's the biggest reason you can't save, they talk about having too many debts, particularly when it comes to things like credit card debts, which, oftentimes can be avoidable. I know it's not always, but they tend to have higher interest rates, higher payments. It's really hard. You get a plan to help yourself pay down those debts to kind of break that cycle. And shopping around for lower payments, particularly, one of the things that I personally do, every 2 years, I shop my insurance, my car and homeowners insurance. I shop it every 2 years just to see if there's a company out there. Last time I made a change, it's probably been 4 years, but I saved about $350 a year. When you break that down monthly, it's $30 a month. I mean, that's significant money there that you can then, put into savings. People do it different ways with, phones and TV service and things like that. There's always somebody out there, hopefully that may have a promotion or something like that going on. You can cut your internet bill by $20 or your phone bill by $20, things like that. You do 3 or 4 of those things in a month, you just found $100, it really adds up. Also, with everything being online, everything being on the internet, if there's particular products you're looking for, household products, clothing, those kind of things, you can always kind of shop around on the internet to see where some places may have some specials and others, may not. So I think that's, spending a little bit of time doing that is definitely helpful as well. All right, next slide. Sorry. Developing sustainable spending habits. So a couple little things that you could do to kind of help you moving forward. Having a to-do list. Plan your grocery spending. Like, make a list. There's, a lot of grocery stores even have apps nowadays, and they have easy links that you could just go and type right on your phone and type your grocery list, or do it old school, write it down on a piece of paper. I think that that's really important. They also say, in a funny way, never go to the grocery store hungry, because then, the junk food and the things like that that you may not normally buy look really good at that time. But definitely make a list and stick to the list. It'll help you avoid the impulse buys. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes into, a lot of retailers, and they know what the impulse items are. That's why they put them up front. That's why they put them at the ends, because they know when people walk by, they're going to be very tempted to just grab it off the shelf. But if you make a list, you could even, I know people that go as far as planning out the route. They know I need aisle 3, then aisle 4, then go to the back to the bakery, up front, that's it, I'm done. Planning a route through the grocery store, and, buying the items that are only on your list. Saving for upcoming expenses, and emergencies, things like that. Unfortunately, they do happen sometimes in life that you have that emergency. I think that that's why it's very important to pay yourself first, to keep saving. So when those emergencies happen, you don't get caught in that cycle of putting it on your credit card and trying to figure out how to pay it later, because that's challenging. That's very challenging for people to do. Make coffee at home. So I used to be the biggest guilty person of this. I like coffee, and there's, between where I live and where I work, I pass about a dozen coffee shops, and so it's very easy to stop at some of them. So I've been working from home now since the middle of March, and when I started doing that, at first I kind of realized I was leaving the house in the morning, going out, grabbing coffee, coming home. Not every day, but I was doing it about 3 or 4 days a week. And honestly, it just kind of annoyed me. So I went online, I found a personal coffee maker, cost me $20, had it delivered. I'm weird, I keep track of everything I spend. It costs me 73 cents to make a cup of coffee at home. And I buy one of the, large retailers' coffee ground at the grocery store, cream and sugar, and put it in, and I make, I usually ice it because I kind of like that. But it costs me 73 cents a cup of coffee at home. Most time you go out to a store, it's probably going to be $3 to $5 for the same thing. So, I save over half right there. And when I stretch it out weekly, I think it took me about 2.5 weeks to recoup the cost of the coffee machine itself, so, and I've had it for, 9 months now. So I've definitely saved a lot of money by doing that. Packing lunches, those of you who work in offices and things like that, packing lunches, making a list, going to the grocery store, finding your lunch items, coming home, packing a lunch. It's easier than, when you're at the office or, wherever you're working, going out to buy lunch might be $10, $12, $15 every day. If you pack a lunch, you can probably do it for $3 to $5, so that's an easy way to save. And then paying off your credit card, the savings, if you tracked 30, I always tell people to track 30 days, and it's not for anybody to judge, honestly, it's for yourself. But you're going to find areas that you could save money. You could take little tips, again, $5 here, $10 there, those kind of things. It really adds up in a month. Maybe you have an extra $100 at the end of the month. Use that. I always say, 2/3 of it or so to help pay down that debt. Because once that debt starts paying down, then that $100 turns into $200, turns into $300. It really kind of grows like that. And it just little habits that you can do here and there in order to, kind of adjust your everyday spending and things like that. So, next slide.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to take.
So summing it all up. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. If you want to take it, by all means, go ahead. Okay, so summing up some of the key points from Mike's discussion today, the first thing that we talked about was developing a budget. So like Mike said, that's your plan. That's what you put in forth. Next, we said create a savings plan. So for this, you have to remember to pay yourself first, just like Mike said. You remember to put that savings into the bank for yourself. Then we talked about knowing your needs versus your wants. This is where you can start to cut those expenses. And then finally, take all these things that Mike talked about today and put them into practice and make it a habit. That way, when those big expenses come up or those emergency things happen, you're prepared for them and you've got some money in the bank and you're ready to take that on. So if you have any questions for Mike now, can you go ahead and enter them into our chat box and then we'll let Mike answer them for you. But to start us off, Mike, we did have one question already for you. So we had somebody go ahead and ask, when should I start to create this new budget plan and put it into effect?
So I think the easiest answer on something like that is as soon as possible. Whether that means today, tomorrow, you know, obviously the earlier you get started, the earlier you could see results. A lot of people like to use sort of milestone, something like a trigger, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because if right now we're at the beginning of December, we got the beginning of the year coming up. If you prepare yourself for the next 4 weeks that, hey, the first of the year, I'm really going to start tracking and start changing habits, it puts you sort of in a mindset that you're going to do it. It makes it less painful when January 1st comes. Where if you just say, I'll start tomorrow, well, then you'll do it for a couple of days and then maybe kind of fall off a little bit, So different people work different ways. I would say, definitely soon. And if you're looking for sort of that milestone to start, definitely the first of the year would be, it's time to make resolutions, time to, make some updates, make some changes. If you go to a gym, they get 50% of their memberships come in the first 4 weeks of every year, because it's that milestone. I'm gonna go, and gyms are empty by the middle of March. So, just whatever works a little better for you. If you need that goal to really psych yourself up, so to speak, for it, I think that's a great way. Like I said, we're about 4 weeks out right now. So.
Okay, so another person typed in a question and they said, I don't carry any cash, kind of like you mentioned, Mike, but I can see all of my expenses in my bank statements each month. Is this the same as your suggestion to write down every expense?
Yeah, so having it track on your online banking is really good, and nowadays they have apps. You can have an app on your phone for your online banking. I guess most banks probably have that, so you can keep track of everything really good. You just have to remember, hey, when I withdraw cash, I need to know what happened to that cash. I need to, which some people do it every now and then. Maybe you go to a festival or something and you bring some cash, or you're going to a farmer's market and you bring some cash. So it does help. I kind of like to say, if you keep track of it separate as well, like on a piece of paper, on a notepad or something sitting on your desk, it's there, it's tangible, it's in front of you, it's kind of in your face. So you can't hide from it. You can't just forget to log in or, those kind of things. So a combination of both, I think, is great. It's good to help track the expenses. I kind of suggest people write it down as well, because it's a little more, when you write something, you're 3 times as likely to remember it. So, if you took your phone in your hand and wrote down next to it, I think that's a great option.
I know, especially with credit cards and these online banking statements and like that, it's easy to not remember to look at it and just pay the bill each month and then move on. But if we're writing it down, as you're suggesting, it will help us realize, where we could maybe cut some of those expenses. And oh, I didn't realize I went to Starbucks 6 times, this month or something like that, and I cut that.
Sure. Yeah, and things like that, you don't look, or maybe you only look for a couple of days or something like that. But, write it down at the end of the month, categorize everything. This was, frivolous spending, this was clothing, this was my rent, or my mortgage payment, the things that may be a little more of the fixed stuff that you can't avoid. And I've never had somebody that actually made a 30-day plan that didn't find areas of change, myself included. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. When you find those areas of change, you can, adjust for yourself at that time.
Do you think it would be helpful for some of the people watching if they took maybe that monthly bank statement that they get and they broke it down using that budgeting sheet that we had earlier in the presentation, and they filled in which of those expenses were fixed and which ones were, variable, and do that each month? Would that kind of help them?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times, whether it's, a credit card or a debit card, things like that, they break down sort of they might say gas purchase, or something like that. They put it into categories. It might be slightly different than what you need, but it's going to help. I know, if you go to a gas station and you go inside to get a bag of chips and soda or something, a lot of times it's still listed as gas. And we know that's not technically gas, but you'll know it's a gas station. And then you can kind of break it down yourself, saying, nah, these were snacks, and things like that. Again, nothing wrong with having snacks, but if that's an area that maybe you can cut, then that would certainly be helpful.
Great. All right, we have another question that just came in. So someone's asking for a little bit more detail about savings. So where should they put their savings funds? Should they put it into a CD or leave in a lower interest savings account?
But that depends really on what the purpose of the funds are. Typically with the CD, it's one time, like a lump of money you put in, and then it's kind of locked for 12 months or 2 years, or however that works. It's not bad to have some money in there, that you're saving. Hey, you know what? I'm going to need a car in 2 or 3 years, so let me earn a little more interest, and I can put 1,000 or 2,000 to kind of save up for a down payment. But the liquid everyday, emergency fund should be probably more in a savings account, because then it's liquid. If you have the emergency, you can get access to it right away. So it's good to have 2 or 3 different options, just depending on exactly what the money's for. And I believe that there are seminars that we do on different saving strategies and things like that. So be a good opportunity to come back and take a look when we do one of those.
Yes, definitely. Okay, we've got another question for you, Mike. Someone is asking,
Okay.
you could talk a little more about needs and wants and how that helps to reduce your expenses if they're trying to get to, an end goal of saving this amount of money by the end of the year or something.
Okay. So you kind of work backwards with that. Let's say next year I need to save $3,000. You take that, okay, how much is that per month? I guess that's $250 per month that I need. Take your 30-day plan that you've, monitored everything, and find ways to adjust. I mean, like I said, the wants and needs line always varies. We all need a new shirt, but we may be able to buy a $25 shirt instead of a $50 shirt, and things like that. And those types of things help us. Going to a coffee shop on the way to work, probably a little bit more of a need, of a want than a need. But again, nothing wrong with coffee. And I think it's just kind of small adjustments throughout. I had somebody I was working with at one time, and they, were stopping every day at a coffee shop, spending $4 or $5 a day on the way to work. And, we kind of made a plan, like, what, how about this? Do it Mondays and Fridays. Mondays, probably the worst days to drive into work for some people, because everybody's got the case of the Mondays. But so, you need that pick me up. And then Friday, hey, it's the end of the week. It's a nice reward for yourself. You worked hard all week, you deserve it. And something like that, I think the person's average was going to be saving about $12 or $13 a week right there. Put that in a month, you've got yourself $50 savings a month right there. So you're 20% on your way to that 250 goal that you need. And never feel bad. If your goal is 3,000 by the end of next year and you only got 2,500, don't feel bad. That's great. That's more than the 0 you had the year before, and things like that. So set realistic goals. Look at what your 30-day plan is, and find ways in there to cut. When it comes to entertainment and things like that, everybody needs, family time out of the house, or the date nights, or however everybody's household is. Maybe find, ways to do it. There's right now with the holidays, some people like holiday lights. There's different places you can go. You can drive through neighborhoods and see the holiday lights, maybe rather than paying the $40 or $50 at the drive-through. They have the ones set up that you can get in your car and drive through. There's a couple of neighborhoods around Loudoun County, I know particularly, where the neighbors have fun with it, and something like that. You can still do it and get most of what you want out of it, but maybe save that $50 right there. Now, I would say, the date nights and the family days out of the house are needs, not wants. They are absolutely needs, but wanting to pay money for the big event or big festival, that might be a little bit more towards the want side than the need side.
So you're saying there's even ways within your needs to kind of adjust the amount of money that you're going to spend on those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's where, the gray area comes in. And, it's hard to blanketly say, because everybody's family's different, everybody's household's different, everybody's expenses are different. But, I think and everybody can find within their needs, ways to cut things a little bit, not to stretch them into those wants. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, Mike, I think that was the last question that you had. So we're going to move on over.
Okay.
We want to thank you, Mike, for joining us today and taking the time to teach us a little bit about savings and getting ready for the new year. We also want to thank all of our guests today who came and watched this presentation. We hope you learned something and that you'll be able to take some of the things that we've talked about and apply them for this coming year, and hopefully save a little bit of money and cut some expenses. But if you had any additional questions, we do have on our website already pre-recorded sessions. So you can go back on there and learn more about financial education and home maintenance and DIY and some other really interesting topics. So you might be able to go on there and find some other really great information to help you get ready for the coming year. But we also have some great sessions that are going to be coming up that are live. So on December 17th, we're going to be talking more about taking control of your debt. So addressing a little bit of what Mike talked about, like paying down your credit cards and things like that. We're going to do a deeper dive into that with some other guest speakers, and they're going to explain to you some strategies that you can use to help take control of your debt and pay it down this coming year. So we hope that you'll join us for that session as well. And you can register for that at loudounhabitat.org/toolsforlife. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.